Welcome back to some new r/PettyRevenge stories, where people share small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Attitude. I worked in retail for a high-end audio store where we exclusively sold one brand. Also, this didn't happen in the US. One day, a customer came in, let's call her Karen, and said, "I'm looking for headphones." I stepped forward, as usual, and politely asked her what she needed them for. She responded by asking what we had under a specific budget. I showed her our options and was simply doing my job as politely as possible. Then, out of nowhere, Karen said, "I don't like your attitude and I make more than you." She punctuated this by leaning in, putting her face right in mine. To top it off, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. My manager and I were stunned, standing there unsure of what had just happened. As Karen left, I noticed her car in the parking lot. It had her business details advertised on the side. Later, feeling frustrated, I created a Google account and left a review about how she came across as rude, unpleasant, and unprofessional. I moved on with my life and didn't think much of it. About 6 months later, after I had moved to another job, I decided to check back on the review. To my surprise, my comments seemed to have sparked a flood of similar negative reviews from other people who shared the same sentiments about her attitude. Even more surprising, her business was closed. The next story is called Private Driveway. My friend's house has a small driveway with large bushes on either side. It's located on a street right next to a very popular park. On the 4th of July, the park was packed and street parking was almost impossible to find. While my friend was away, someone, let's call her Karen, parked in his driveway without permission. When he got back home and found her car there, he decided to park his rarely used car across the driveway, completely blocking it. He went inside, and shortly after, there was a knock at the door. It was Karen. She demanded, in a very dramatic way, that he move his car this very instant, emphasizing every word. Instead of engaging further, he simply closed the door. Karen then called the police, but they informed her that my friend was parked legally in his own driveway. Furious, she left, saying that if he didn't move his car by the next morning, she'd be calling her lawyer. The next morning, Karen returned, complaining about her struggles to get around and how much she needed the car. She even mentioned it was a rental and that her kids would be upset without it. Once again, my friend refused to move his car and shut the door. For the next 2 weeks, Karen came by daily, yelling and making a scene. Apparently, she had planned to leave town 2 days after the 4th, but had to extend her stay just to deal with the situation. Eventually, my friend moved his car, but didn't let her off easily. He called a towing company to have her car towed, and informed her afterward. Karen sent him a bill for her extended hotel stay. Her family had kicked her out after a week. The rental car fees, the impound cost, and food from some of the most expensive restaurants in town. The total was over $5,000. Needless to say, that bill went straight into the trash. The third story is called Noisy Coworker. A colleague at work sits just 5 feet from me and makes quite a bit of noise. He has loud phone conversations, tells the same joke at maximum volume to anyone who passes by, and generally makes it difficult for me to concentrate. Since I can't complain, his boss and I have had a history of disagreements. I resorted to staying late to get my work done. This colleague is particularly fond of his old, damaged chair. The chair's casters are chipped and stuck, and it makes a piercing squeal whenever he swivels it. The sound is almost unbearable, but for some reason, he loves it. One evening, after everyone had left, I noticed an unused new chair in the office. New chairs are extremely rare here, so I decided to replace his noisy chair with the smooth, silent one. I left his old chair in plain sight at an unoccupied desk nearby, thinking he'd simply adapt to the new one. The next day, he stormed into the office, sat down, and immediately realized the new chair didn't squeak. He was absolutely furious, shouting, "Who took my chair?" Despite his old chair being just a few steps away, he made a big scene, reclaimed it, and spent the rest of the day swiveling back and forth to maximize the noise. At lunchtime, I went to a hardware store and bought a small can of WD-40. That night, I carefully lubricated the stem and casters of his chair. I made sure to wipe off any excess so his suit wouldn't get ruined. The next morning, he sat down and immediately noticed something was off. His chair was silent and the wheels moved smoothly. He spent the better part of the day trying to figure out how to get it to squeak again. Over the following weeks, whenever the chair started squeaking again, I'd quietly reapply the lubricant after hours. It became a bit of a game. He'd try his hardest to make it noisy, and I'd make it silent again. Eventually, after a few months, the chair gave out completely. One morning, he sat down, gave it a good swivel, and the stem snapped, sending him tumbling to the floor. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. In the end, he had no choice but to use the brand new chair I had originally found for him. The last story is called Her New Boss. Several years ago, I worked with a woman, Mary, who was quite difficult to work with. She and I applied for the same promotion, and she got it. I was okay with not getting the job, because it wasn't part of my career path, and I was mainly just interested in the extra money. However, after her promotion, she began to treat me poorly, even though she wasn't in my chain of command. She made snide comments to my co-workers, who thankfully supported me and tried to assign work to me. When I refused, she would go to our mutual boss and complain until I was forced to take on the extra work. Although I suspected she was lying about me to our boss, I had no proof, so I just kept quiet. Eventually, I transferred to another department. In the weeks before I moved, it became clear that someone was tampering with my work, changing data on files I was working on. I suspected Mary, but again, had no proof. The situation escalated when she accused me in front of the entire office of sabotaging the computer system. No one believed her, but it was still very upsetting. Eventually, I decided to move to my new job sooner than planned, and for the next several years, I had only limited contact with Mary while working on projects together. I kept to myself and made sure to cover my tracks. During that time, I received several promotions and eventually became the director of my department. My department has about 50 people, and I mainly interact with the supervisors. Mary had quite a reputation, and I was surprised when HR approached me about taking her on, because she was about to be let go from her current position. At first, I didn't think I could be impartial, but I didn't have much choice. Due to her role, she would report to me directly. While I wasn't excited about the situation, I started to think of how I could handle things in a fair yet firm way. When Mary first came to my office, she looked terrified, as though she knew what was coming. I started off by asking her if she understood how she had ended up in this situation. To my surprise, she admitted that it was karma. She then apologized for everything she had done to me, including the lies and sabotage. At that point, I was ready to move forward, but I thought of one final step. I calmly told her, "You know that you could be let go for your actions." I let that sink in, watching as she visibly tensed. Then I added, "But I'm not going to do that. Instead, you will decide your own fate here. It will be up to you to succeed or fail, and I won't be the one to blame." It felt much better to give her the chance to redeem herself, rather than exacting revenge. She's still working for me, and although she's made significant improvements, I think she may eventually find another job. Not because she's being fired, she's actually done better, but because I believe being nice to me is a challenge for her, and she may decide to move on. Hopefully it will be to a company where she can find a fresh start. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.